Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first episode of Kayfabe with Keaton of 2025. And what a guest we have coming in here. But before we get in, I want to announce a few things. So, for 2025, it's going to be the biggest year ever for Kayfabe with Keaton on the Wrestling Revolution with Keaton YouTube channel. We've just announced Indie Wrestling Uncut. So after this Kayfabe with Keaton, make sure you go out and check that. Indie Wrestling Uncut, my new series to respect indie wrestlers. Some of the most truthful experiences of the business you'll hear from. And we're doing the biggest double header for 2025 here, where we'll have Crusher Crossing coming in at 8 p.m. For his retirement match, to talk about his retirement match and hear his thoughts against his match with Ricky Henry. This is going to be one of the most hardcore matches and dangerous matches for Crusher Crossing, and this is going to be quite a heated interview talking about Ricky Henry. So now we've got that up to date, I want to bring in the Lariat God, the definition of combat zone wrestling, pro wrestling legend and ultra violent legend, DJ Hyde.
Thank you, Keaton. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming on, especially this time as well. It's quite early over in where you live.
Yeah, it's quite all right. I'll make the time for you. Make time for people.
Thanks. So, in your career, you've had a very long career. So, what's your very first memory of wrestling as a fan?
Wow. So I got into wrestling very, very early in life. I was probably about 5, 6. My father's side of the family is from the South, and my grandfather used to set up pro wrestling rings. So wrestling was kind of like a thing, and it was kind of also one of the few things that me and my dad kind of really bonded over when I was younger. So I remember being like 5, 6 years old, I don't know, somewhere around that time at that point in my life, and we were watching like WWE on TV and watching what was it at the time? I think it was the NWA at the time. So, because I remember like early days seeing early like Ric Flair, early Ricky Steamboats, and guys, Hogan, and through the Hulkamania, kind of era of things and WWE. I remember all of that, and I think that was about the time that I seen like my first match, and kind of was really just enthralled in it, from a young kid to even now going on 48 years old. So, and it was also something at the time like me and my dad were into. So it was very, you kind of had that fatherly son bond that really worked with it. And then we just, then from there it became kind of an addiction in a way. So it got worse throughout the years. So wrestling's like a drug. It really is. It's like once you get that little teeny taste of like the greatness of it, it's you don't ever want to let it go.
Absolutely. Like, even if you look at, I'm definitely addicted to wrestling. You're right. It is like a drug. Like I've had 2 matches myself in wrestling, and I just want to get back in. Run the ropes, being in front of a crowd. So it is really addictive.
I think even just watching it, like I was probably like shortly after that, I think I got my first real live experience, and I can't remember. I think it was at the time. It was the Spectrum in Philadelphia we went to, which is no longer, the building's no longer there. But I remember being there, being a little kid, going with my dad, my uncle, and I became a Hogan fan. Like I was obsessed with Hogan, and my dad had me like third row, had me on his shoulders. I'm like watching the match, and this is in the height of the '80s, and just really coming up and seeing that, and it was like the experience. It's not even just like watching it on TV is like one thing, especially now. Now it's a lot different now than it was back then. But now, like even to this day, when I'm watching a show, it doesn't matter if it's 100 people, 1,000, 10,000, whatever it is. If I'm there live, just that kind of experience of being there kind of changed you. It's a much different feeling. So it's I think that was really like when it was okay. Here's the addiction. Here's the like, I'm going to be a fan of this for the rest of my life. And then you kind of go from there.
Yeah, and like when you mentioned there being a fan of Hulk Hogan, Hogan was the kind of guy, like, he didn't need to use wrestling skills to be good. Like, even if you look at him with his leg drop, that's like a basic move in wrestling, but he was able to make that look so good. Would you say that you get a lot of your style from Hulk Hogan with just character work more?
Well, I would say as my character, Hogan was kind of like an idol in a performance and character standpoint when I was younger. I don't think my wrestling is based off of him. A couple things that I do, or like I say, or like things I'll do in a promo, or I've taken from him. Like for a long time, I think I was saying I'm the greatest professional athlete alive today. That was something that Gorilla Monsoon used to say about Hogan, like every week, especially in the early days. And I was like, you kind of get enamored with that person because when you're that young, you don't really know. And, like you're seeing a leg drop and thinking, oh, this is great. And then, you're out there like jumping off couches and, with your friends in the park or wherever when you're younger. And you're just like, okay, I'm going to do these things. And, now I've met a lot of these people. I've been in the ring with some of them. It's like, it's kind of mind blowing how you get to go from that to where you are now. But when you're that age, you just really don't know. I mean, I think my wrestling stuff developed a lot later in life. Like what I base myself off of. And I've been based off of a couple of different things depending on where I'm at and who obviously as a talent I work for.
Yeah, I get what you mean. And Hulk Hogan is a big impact in a lot of, especially from your era, a lot of kids, with the strength. And even just, as you mentioned, there with the leg drop, any kid would just be in love with that thing. Even like when Hulk Hogan can make a leg drop look good, it just shows how good of a wrestler he actually was. So, so you mentioned there that you were kind of sort of impacted by Hulk Hogan, and you've been a big wrestling fan of Hulk Hogan, and you've been a big wrestling fan all your life. So, but when was the point? I remember I saw a thing online and asked you if it was true there that you were in football before you got into wrestling. So, how did you get into that, and why instead of wrestling?
So pretty much through sports was my life when I was much younger. I was one of in my high school days, I was one of the best players in the country. I was actually, an All-American high school football player. I basically had a choice of where I was going to go to school. And I decided to end up going to Penn State. I was a big Penn State fan. I was a huge fan of Joe Paterno at the time, who was coach. And I think younger in my life, I think that was where I wanted to be. I visited a lot of the schools and, I did the due diligence. Went there, moved up, got into my dorms. Second day of practice, second day of what I would say is full pads, not just, working out and, going through things. I was made a tackle on a run play from a running back, got caught under a pile. My right leg and my right ankle just basically snapped. I tore my MCL, ACL, and 13 other ligaments in seconds. When it happened, I don't think I even knew at the time because I didn't feel it. I didn't feel any pain. I didn't really feel any pain until the doctors started coming and moving and touching and things like that. At that point, my life really changed. I was a young kid, barely 18, and basically, I went from, okay, football is going to be my life and I want to play professionally and sports, because wrestling at the time wasn't even something that I thought was on the table. I mean, back then it was so much harder. Even the way that I got into wrestling was not what you would probably do today. It was so much harder to break in back then to what it is now. And, after 9 surgeries later, you know, I was, basically in a wheelchair for a little while, and then crutches and stuff. They didn't know if I was going to walk right because my ankle, like, if fans probably don't see it, but my right ankle, like, it is just like, I am fine, but it is jacked up sometimes. It swells up even to this day, and becomes a pain. But it kind of went from, okay, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go to school here, and I'm going to have an education, to of dreams of the NFL, to, okay, look, you're not going to play football, so we're going to take your scholarship from you, because you can't physically play, and your life kind of changes quickly. I finished out a couple of semesters of school there. It was quite a bit of a struggle, just because you're doing school, you're doing rehabs. I mean, it's like practice, but it's you have to do the rehabbing at certain times, and classes are at certain times, and then you're kind of hobbling around to get to places, and people taking you in a wheelchair, or things dropping you off, and it's not something my entire life that I was very accustomed to. I haven't had a whole lot of injuries in my life when it came to football, or even wrestling. I've had a couple of small surgeries, but nothing that, like, oh, hey, I'm better in a couple weeks, or like little teeny stuff. This was the first, like, there was a point where they were having a conversation, like, we don't know if you're going to walk, and that is a lot to take at 18, and especially when you're, like, fresh out of high school. It's a lot different than what I was accustomed to. And most of my life was, I think my mom really kind of did this. My dad worked a lot. I mean, he worked like 12-hour swing shifts. Like, you would never know what his schedule was week to week. But my mom kind of put me in sports. Like, if I wasn't playing football, it was basketball or baseball or wrestling, or like, we had a boys club that I used to go to all the time, and it was like, we would just play games. That's what it would be. We'd go, they had the basketball courts, or dodgeball, or whatever we could, I could get my hands on as a younger kid, which also kept me away from a lot of the other things that could have came up in my life. But that instant, like, really changed everything. And because my trajectory was NFL. Like, that was where I came into the school of my choice, full ride. I mean, I could have went probably almost anywhere in the country. Not only just that, I mean, Penn State is major school, won national championships, Joe Paterno, at the time, not now, but at the time, it was a big deal. And to kind of have that taken away from you when, from the time you're about 13, 14, going, okay, we're going to work to this goal. We're going to, I'm going to do this, and we're going to build to this. And I got to put in all this time to do all this. And, whether it was, camps or outside stuff, and not just that, like, your family's making sacrifices. I don't say this enough, but, without my family, I wouldn't be anywhere where I am, because they, my mom worked a lot, my dad worked a lot, but somehow made the time, well, my mom mostly, but made the time to allow me and get me to these places. And, wrestling was just something at the time that, like, okay, me and my dad watched it, or my grandfather, or, something, like, it was like, okay, like, we used to have one of those, like, hot boxes. I don't know if people remember those back in the day, where, like, to watch, like, I think it wasn't even pay-per-view at the time, but to watch it, you had to, like, hit buttons, and it was like a big thing. And, we got one of those that was, it was illegal, of course, but, just so we could watch, like, WrestleMania 1, you know what I'm saying? Like we used to have that kind of stuff just to watch wrestling, and go way out of our way to do that. And, I can remember, like very, very early, like seeing things like tapes. Like I remember my first wrestling tape was kind of crazy, you know. It was like, oh my God, I can go back and watch, this, and you just don't know. So, but I'm rambling. My apologies. I get excited about this.
No problem.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think with football, it was mostly like that was my trajectory. I mean, I was being everything from the time that I was probably my second year in high school was like, okay, you have a real shot to be in the National Football League. I have the size, I had the speed at the time and the power um, to kind of be a major force. It was just about, okay, well, look, you can, you're one of many. There's a lot of people that can make it. Doesn't mean they will. So that was kind of the focus and going, that's what I'm going to do. Because I just love sports. I love football a lot. Um, I don't think it compares to wrestling, but it's something that at the time I just really loved and really loved to do, and was just working my ass off. Definitely more than my studies, but uh, to do, because I thought I had that trajectory, and that was what I was kind of led to believe by a lot of people, and a lot of people that are professional people. So it's which also kind of, I guess, helps transition onto how I got into pro wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of why I asked that, because it's quite a cool story to hear. Obviously, it's not cool to hear that you're in a wheelchair, but like it's kind of inspirational story to hear that you went from not being told that you're probably not going to walk again, then training in one of the most what's the word you use, like hardcore schools ever, CZW at the time, with John
I
Dahmer
I
and
actually see. I think most people think I started here, but I don't. How I actually started, I went to, so basically, here's how I started wrestling. And again, I think a lot of people don't know this. So, my local promotion, um, is ECWA. Um,
Mhm. Yeah,
if you don't know what ECWA is, it's probably most known for the Super 8.
yeah, I know.
At the time, the Super 8 was, I mean, it was the tournament. It was everything. And I could walk. This is blocks from my house where I grew up. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, you know, when I was younger, and I could literally get on my bike and, go to shows. And I had been doing that when I was younger, and went there. I just started walking again at that point. I was about to, probably a couple months before my 19th birthday. And I was sitting there watching the show, just, you could see me enjoying it. And I was at a merch table, talking to a wrestler named Cheetah Master, who I didn't, he's under a mask. I didn't really know much about him at the time. Um, and I made a conversation with him, and we must have talked for about 45 minutes. And I remember saying, I wish I could do what you do. And he said, how serious are you? And I said, I'm very serious. So at the end of the night before we were leaving, main event was on. He came out and he said, if you're actually serious, come to this gym. And it was a gym called 1614, which is still here. It's in Glasgow or Bear, Delaware, whatever you want to call it. Showed up there. He asked me to be there at like 6. I literally sat at the front of the building till 8 by myself waiting. And the guy at the desk was just like, oh, he'll be, he's got some stuff going on. He'll be here. He's just running a little behind, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I'm supposed to meet this guy. My name is David Martin. Like I was just kind of weirded out by it. Little did I know the guy behind the desk was him. He's the owner of the gym. So I'm just like kind of sitting there, just chilling. And then, around like 8 o'clock, he's kind of wrapping things up, and, and he just wanted to see if I was serious. That's really all it was. And then from
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
I started going on the road, like with him and a couple other wrestlers. Like I learned at shows. My first real match, I wasn't even really trained. Like, I mean, um, that was, it was an experience, let's just say. But again, I'm 6'4". At the time, I was probably like 265. I mean, I had the right, I had the traditional, WWE style, look, like guys like, oh, here's a big guy. So that old school promoters would just be like, oh, he's a big guy. We're gonna have him come in here and beat up these younger guys. Like I was just kind of a force, and that was doing what I was told, and learning things like I don't even think I really learned how to do like a flip bump until maybe a year in, like at least properly. Like I knew how to do things, but I don't think I knew how to do one. Like I don't think anybody ever showed me. And then from there, I got to my first real wrestling school, which wasn't CZW. It was the Wild Samoans, and that's when I met Pops. And Pops big mentor of mine, and very very close with the Samoan family, even to this day. But I also believe that around that time is when I discovered CZW, and I guess we can kind of transition into that if you want.
Yeah, well, before I ask that question, you trained with some legends there, but being told before that you weren't going to be able to walk, and then next minute you just learned how to walk, you're in professional wrestling. How did what was the kind of way your family reacted after you've just learned how to walk again and you're wrestling again?
My mom, I've been doing this going on, I don't know, 2.5, a little more than 2.5 decades. I've been in the business longer than most people. And my mom to this day, I did this for a full-time living, paid my mortgage, my car payments, all, did everything. My wife, my wedding, all that stuff was paid for through wrestling. And to this day, my mom still says that I'm playing. Like, cause she saw me younger, like, jumping off the couch, like hitting like, Jimmy Snuka's splashes and, Randy Savage elbows on, on my friends, and, in the park doing stuff like that, early, and then like, kind of backyard wrestling a little bit. And, my dad was just very like, oh, that's cool, son. Like blah, 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 you know, um, just like most of the sports I played, my dad really never got to see me play because he was always working. If he wasn't working, he was probably sleeping or doing, things you had to do, as a man, or as, at the time, the expectation, around the house or for the family. And then, my mom thought I was playing, but they supported it. It wasn't something where they're like, oh, that's stupid. Why are we doing it? It was just like, oh, okay, that's like a thing DJ's going to do, when I was younger. As I got older, that kind of transitioned, except my mom still says I'm playing. Most of the rest of my family, my grandmother, and I'll talk about her probably later. They just, they supported it. I mean, they still do. I mean, if you get to come to some of the shows sometimes, like the big stuff that CZW does, a lot of my family's there. They just show up. They come because, oh, it's a cool big thing, but they're not there to just do that. They're there for the support, and it's not like they're bringing their friends and, hey, look at this crazy, like this. It was it's a much different thing. So at an early age, it was from that, because like even like football, like my dad, I think my dad maybe got to see me play 2 games in my entire football career, and I think one of them was like a championship game that we played, and it was like something he had to like take off of work, and because my family, they my dad's from Tennessee. He's the oldest of like 6 brothers. It's kind of not, they grew up on a farm. My mom's from Pennsylvania. It's kind of different people, but when they were in school, they met, but and fell in love and all that great stuff. But it's it was very different back then. And plus I had a lot of freedom because my parents worked a lot. I grew up when I grew up, like basically my whole family was on my street. Like it was like my house, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, like all right up the block. So like Christmas and stuff like that was awesome. If I needed something, like both my mom and dad were working and I needed like food or something, I would just go 2 doors down. My grandmother would make me something, and they're country, they're from, the hills of Tennessee, and it you know, biscuits and gravy or whatever you need. I learned how to make a lot of stuff when I was younger, but I always had that there. So if I needed to go somewhere, I needed to do something. There was always something there. But even by the time I was 18, like I would just get in a car and drive. There'd be times where I would just, like, even when I was just going to shows like that, I might not come back. I'd stay at a friend's house, or because by the time you got back, it was like 2, 3 in the morning, and just like, screw it, I'm not driving home.
Yeah.
And then you kind of get used to that. And my parents really didn't, like, I was very, like, I had a lot of freedom even when I was young. Like, I didn't have a curfew. I didn't, don't get me wrong, I got in trouble a lot, but like I never really didn't have like those handcuffs. Like if I came home when I was like 8, 9 years old at 10, 11 o'clock, nobody's gonna care. Like, it was okay. As long as I got up, went to school the next day and did what I needed to do. And like, my parents didn't really hammer me. So it just, it just was a certain way. Again, I rant and ramble.
Absolutely.
So my brain's not functioning yet. I apologize, everybody. I'm just now having my caffeine here. So I'm drinking my wonderful energy drink as we sit here. So
No problem. But I'm just, before we talk about the CZW stuff, I'm going to bring in some of our comments. So Mary Molly says, Keaton, you're definitely starting 2026 with a banger. Thanks very much for that. But and she says, what a legend DJ Hyde is.
I appreciate that. But I don't consider myself a legend. My legacy is actually different now than it's going to be as a talent. But we'll get to that too. So might as well talk about everything while we're here.
Yep. And
but
TZS videos said, who was your main inspiration in wrestling in the early days?
So what happened to me at that time is that's when I would say right before that was when I discovered Xtreme Championship Wrestling. Didn't know a whole lot about all of it at the time because it wasn't something like when I'm younger, ECW was on at like 1 a.m, and I didn't get a whole lot of chances to watch it on TV. But it was like indie wrestling and WWE on a weird steroided crazy thing, and it was kind of hip and cool. And at the time, I didn't know too much about it, and that's kind of how the transition really happened to where I'm at. It wasn't even just like the hardcore wrestling aspect, like that was part of ECW, but that wasn't what like really got to me. It was like, oh, these people are real. They're not like, you'll find I'm not really like, I don't like, I like comedy wrestling and all that stuff. I really do. But I like real belief. Like, I like, okay, this person isn't going to go out here and say, I'm going to kick your high knee, or, the Roman Reigns sucker and succotash line, like haunts it to this day. Nobody's going to say that. They're not in real life. They're going to go out here and be like, I'm going to kick your ass. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to fuck you up. I'm going to, and it was like not something that you've seen. And at the time I didn't know all the backstage, like, okay, you have censors and all this stuff on TV. And, I'm sitting here watching, like, these guys are like, they're going in, this is the real deal, and it kind of just was like this cool thing. And, I think at that time, shortly after that, I went to my first ECW show and I was just blown away. I was just like, that crowd was, and I was in what is now called the 2300 Arena. And I remember thinking to myself, that building was like, this is like the mecca of like craziness. This is just amazing. And the crowd, and there, it was something really unreal at the time. And because at that time I had been going to these family friendly, cartoony, like this was, you go out there and I'm even if I got an opportunity to be on the shows, I was just doing a couple of things because I was still there. And then when I got to the Wild Samoans, that's when I really started learning how, like, doing stuff. And then shortly after years, like, ECW disappeared, and and a buddy of mine said, hey, there's this company that's ECW on steroids. And I remember saying to him, I was like, you're full of like,
Yeah.
you're full of shit. And he's like, no, they just started. They haven't even been around like a year yet. They just started doing shows. I think they had like their third show the other day. It's in this soccer place in Sewell, New Jersey. And I was like, yeah, your damn mind. But we went, and I was first time I saw CZW. And I was like, okay, this is ECW on steroids. Like this is kind of had a mentality which still has developed in my how I want to do things now. Of like there was something for everybody there. And I think like even ECW had that, and CZW gets really looked over because a lot of people be like, oh, that's a hardcore death match, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, we are, but you had this like you had these great wrestlers, like guys that were just like super talented, these high flyers that were doing stuff at the time that nobody else was doing, and kind of revolutionized what I would call the indie scene. Like at the time, it was like they kind of took over where ECW left the void. And I remember the first time that they did a death match, like a real full on death match, and seeing like tubes and glass and stuff. I'd already seen like barbed wire and fire and stuff like that. But like this type of stuff was like next level. It was like, okay, no, like these people were nuts. Like nobody's doing this stuff, and they were out there making it work. And John Zandig, who created CZW, as kind of the leader and something John is phenomenal at. I mean, he might be one of the best that I've seen next to Paul Heyman. He can get you to believe. He could just he just had this presence, still does, even to this day. I mean, he doesn't wrestle or anything, but it's John had this way about him that you just wanted to work for him. You just wanted to be a part of something that he was saying. And then I met him shortly afterwards, same way after a show. Not at a merch table though, but and I was like, at one point you can go back and you'll probably go back and look at CZW and find I was already wrestling and find me sitting in the front row, probably half drunk. But I met John and he was like, come to school. I was like, I didn't even know you had a school. I knew nothing really. I mean, I'd probably gone to 2 or 3 shows by the time I met John, and I was just like, I didn't know. So, and then it kind of started from there.
Yeah, well, training with John Zandig, who was obviously the owner of ZZW, and I've seen a lot of the ZZW stuff. The first time I actually discovered ZZW, I don't think you were owning it at the time, but it was with the ROH and ZZW war, which was absolute genius to be fair, and I was amazed. But training with the likes of John Zandig, who was an absolute legend in wrestling for starting ZZW, and you carrying it on as well, but with training with him, what's one thing you've learned from training with him that you've carried on to this day?
John in ring was not a guy who in ring taught me a lot. Like, I mean, when it came to deathmatch stuff, John taught me everything I know, and then some. Actually, John was smart. John knew how to do things. John, like, people don't realize. Like, you see a lot of stuff nowadays, and these kids aren't trained in deathmatch wrestling. they don't understand that it's an art form, because while you want it to be a certain way, and Tommy Dreamer taught me this too. You might need a real job someday, kid. You can't go in there with your head all busted up and not being able to move. And, if you're just out here taking stuff, it ain't about taking it. It's about everything that you do. Okay, there is a price, but you want to make sure that price is the right price instead of just being reckless about it. Like even things like light tubes, like John, the tubes are very dangerous. They're probably one of the more dangerous things that I don't particularly like, even though I've done some of the dumbest things on the planet. But there's a way to do it. There's technique. It's like wrestling. Like bumping is a technique. It's something that you have to develop and something that you have to work on consistently. And deathmatch wrestling, there's ways to do things. And if you don't do them these ways, you got a bigger chance of getting hurt. It's not going to say that, things aren't going to happen, because that can happen at any time. But, he taught me that. He also taught me a lot of mentality things, like a lot of, oops, sorry.
No problem.
Sorry, slipping. I was losing my phone. He taught me a lot of mentality things, like a lot of the psychology. John is a man's man. He wasn't really a businessman. Still isn't to this day. Like where he would run the business. I mean, John just knew, okay, this is what works. This is what I do. This is how you're going to do it. Like I'm one of the few coaches nowadays. Like I do a deathmatch class. Like it's not all the time. I do it probably 4 or 5 times a year. But I mean, you might have to work a day job on the indies. I currently work a day job, and I work in an office, and I've done ungodly things to my body. I've been covered head to toe in blood, but minus the fact that I need a pretty good shave right now and a few other things, I can go in and throw the suit on and do what I need to do and not look like, a certain thing, a certain way, where there are other guys that, probably can't do that. John, he also taught me certain mentalities of how he does things. We're similar but different. We're both leaders. He leads by rah-rah. He knows how to fire people up. And he always has. He knows how to, he's like your dad, he's like your dad that you just want to do everything for. You're like, God, it's great, it's cool, and I think everybody looked at him as that way, especially early on, because in the beginning of CZW, it was him and his guys he trained. That was it. Dahmer, when I was training with Dahmer was the guy who came in and was like, okay, look, I'm going to teach you the moves, the sets, the bumps. Like at that point, I'd probably already been on the scene for a couple of years on and off. Like I've probably already had maybe 30 matches under me before I got to CZW, maybe a little more actually. And like I could barely flip them. But once I got there with Dahmer, I mean, I was probably doing 50 a night, like with ease, because Dahmer taught me the techniques. Dahmer's a much different trainer than I am and other people, but the amount of stuff that you can learn from somebody like him, I mean, when it came to like suplexes and complex and new ideas, Dahmer was a genius. Holds and moves and stuff that people, they just don't know. They have no clue the stuff that's out there. Dahmer was one of the coaches that really had an early influence on me. That was like, hey, all these things. This is how it's done. This is how you understand it. This is how the base is. This is how you start. You take this guy. This is how you take this. And I'm a much bigger guy than John. And he's throwing me around like I'm a rag doll. Because he could, because he had the techniques, because he had the skills. He wasn't really the rah-rah popular guy. He was the guy who was going to go out here and kind of come up with this like suplex or head drop or whatever the heck you want to call it. I mean, his finishing move, the move 1,000 Maniacs, is probably one of the more scarier moves to take, but it's an idea that he came up with that I've seen a number of other people carbon copy, and he just kind of ran with it from there. So learning from him, and then you had all those other great talents. Like I remember the first time I came to the school and Tommy Dreamer was there, and I was like, Tommy Dreamer, like, and him and Zandig were doing like some feud at the time or talking about it. And now, like, I've wrestled like Tommy a million times. He's a mentor of mine. He's taught me a lot as a promoter, as a coach, as a wrestler. It's I mean, pick up the phone and call Tommy anytime I want. But at that time, I was like, that's Tommy Dreamer, like holy crap. It made it feel different when you get there. It's I think the CZW school also felt like a home. Like our crew was small at the time, but it was very like, nah, like this is our house, and it was really cool. When I would go to like the Samoan school, which was also about a 3.5 hour drive from me at the time, it was like I was kind of the outsider. It was because I wasn't there every day. I didn't live in the area, but the Samoans liked me. That's what it was like. Oh, no, Pops loves me, and Sam loves me, and Junior, and all those guys. So, but like you could definitely tell, like some of the guys there, like, what the hell is he doing here today? It's kind of like that. I was kind of the outsider, but CZW felt like it was home when I got there. So
Yeah, and like making a wrestling place feel like a home is a great thing for wrestling. Feeling like you belong there. But I'm gonna play a video here of one of your matches. But while I'm doing that, can you answer the question on how you developed your kind of style of being hardcore style, and having your first match in CZW?
my first match in CZW was I was paying dues, doing I signed up for the school. I had already been like I would go out and do small shows. I didn't really have a character in CZW. I had characters that I had done other places. And John showed I don't even know what that.
And I'm glad to be hanging out with him tonight, calling the action for Tier 1 Wrestling.
Oh, there it's Leo, yeah, one of my students.
The bell is rung. We are underway.
I think early on in my career I didn't really have like any idea, and then a personal thing happened behind the scenes. So one of the ways I got into wrestling was I had a personal situation happen with me where I ended up throwing a guy out of a 3-story window and going to prison for a little bit. But and that's a long story. But basically one of the kids at the school, like, I don't know, like he had his clothes like on his car. It was like the middle of summer, and his girlfriend like bought him food, and he like snapped on her and like pushed her. And I didn't particularly care for men physically assaulting women, so I threw him through a wall. And like, if you get to know me, I'm the nicest. Like, don't get me wrong, I can be I can be a dick, and I get it. I'm the boss. Like I'm, and not all my decisions people like, but I took it a certain way, and like you'll kind of see like certain stuff I just snapped back then. Like it would just be like yeah, man, and then all of a sudden it'd be like boom, and Zandig's like, oh, so you're like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and it became a thing, and I had to go to anger management classes, and this match here, I could talk about this match too. This was like one of Leo's real early matches.
Yeah.
So this is when he was going on the road with me. Like he was training with us for years, and Leo's phenomenal. Like he had something. So if I could take him and get him booked places, and this is where I was like, hey, we're gonna work in the ring. I don't think we didn't call any of this. We just did it. But he I kind of snapped, kind of did that. It was like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And then my first match, I think I was like, I didn't think I had my gear with me. I was doing security at the front door. And I think the show had already like we were already letting people in, and I was like, "Oh, John wants you to DJ," and I was like, oh, "Shit, all right, well, what's he want?" You know, I go to the bag. He's like, "Oh, so you're gonna tag with Dahmer tonight, and you're gonna work Rock and Rebel and Greg," and I'm like, "What?" I was like, "I don't even have my gear. Like, I got my training stuff in the car, but I don't have any. I don't have any like wrestling tights or anything." And he's like, "Doesn't matter. You're going out there." I was like, "Okay." And then I remember Rebel coming to me going, "All right, you're the young guy, so you're gonna have to take 5 Rebelizers, brother." And I'm just like looking at Dauber, and we're both trying not to laugh. And then like it was like Dahmer was gonna mentor me, and like they had an idea what I was gonna be. I don't think it ever really came to pass because it was supposed to, like in the beginning, it was like, okay, you're gonna tag with Dahmer for a while, you're gonna feud with Dahmer, you're gonna be the first like student that's come out of the school that graduates that beats Dahmer, and then you're gonna have this like girl with you, and this girl's gonna be like your thing that triggers you. So man,
That's
this
awesome.
I'm
That's
going
actually
I'm watching this match going, all right, look, yeah, we're just kind of rolling through basics going. This thing is so
yeah.
old.
So awesome. So when you have matches and stuff like that, you know you before you we're going to get to how you took CZW after this, but
Mhm.
after we get this topic, but after when you kind of left the CZW dojo and wrestled internationally in Japan and places like that, how did that all come around to wrestling in Japan and internationally?
So I was very, very at the time. I had through CZW, we kind of developed a crew. It was myself, guy named Joker, and Black Cheese is what he goes by now, Sabian at the time. We were a clique. We were the people who would go to the school just to, like me and Joker would go there early because G's couldn't get there on time all the time. And we would just get in the ring, go, just wrestle. Like we'd work out, we'd lift, we'd do whatever. We would just go, and tape trading, finding things like seminars and stuff, meeting people, going on the road, doing the drives, like the stuff that I feel like a lot of people don't want to do anymore. It's not even about the network. It's not about like, oh, let's go out and network. You got to know what's out there. You got to know what the opportunity is. And then we started meeting people. And when you start meeting people, my first tours in Mexico and how I learned how to do lucha was through Skyda Jorge Rivera. The reason that we kind of wanted to learn from him was not about lucha. We watched something called Ultimo Dragon Gym. And then we saw a show called T2P, and we must have watched that show on tape. I mean, we must have wore that thing out, and it was just like mind blowing, watching guys like Crazy Max, SEMA, and BB Hawk, and all those guys, and eventually most people know that this became Dragon Gate. So Skydo was actually the person who taught them. It was a hybrid of Japanese wrestling. Now me, I was a big Kenta Kobashi fan, like huge, old school All Japan guys beating the crap out of each other. Stan Hansen, like these were like guys where I was, that was my mentality. But Joker and G's were, like these spots, like because we were kind of a clique, so we were thinking like, okay, we're gonna kind of do these things because nobody else was doing them, at least here. Then you start seeing all the super indie stuff blowing up and guys doing all the crazy flips, and CZW's bringing in guys, and you start meeting people, and that's kind of how it evolves. And then, the first tour I go over there, it's a little bit different. You're working for smaller companies, and then eventually it's like, okay, well, I met a guy named Matt, and he kind of helped me. And Matt he lives in Japan. And I didn't really speak Japanese at that time, and I still really don't, but I speak enough that I can, get by. And he was kind of like the agent of the deals, and he just loved us, And then I met Matt through meeting Masada, you know, and it was just like, okay, hey, here, this, and then as you eventually build those connections, that was a way, you know, when I built the BJW and Noah connections that we had at the time, that was how I was getting guys over there. Like I think it's really funny that like Adam Cole is tagged with Jun Kasai. You know, like I think I think that's just like crazy. Like people will see that on tape and just kind of go, "What is like huh?" And it's like against like me and Sammy Callahan, and me and Sammy tagging is just odd, you know, like from a character perspective. But from a from a perspective of like benefiting them and learning and everything, I felt like they needed it. You know, Chris Hero, you know, kind of helped me get to Europe. At the time, WXW was like, they did death matches at the time in Germany. And, you know, I had a CZW connection and, you know, and I think one of the first times we went over there was like me, Sammy, and Moxley, I think. Yeah, because I remember Moxley hitting me with a tray full of subs. You know, and then you go and we stay for an extended period of time. So when I got to do these things, it wasn't like, oh, hey, I'm here for a weekend, do a show. No, it's like, hey, I'm living here for the next 6 months. You know, I'm going to train here. I'm going to learn from people. I'm going to go to these dojos or these schools and what's it all about? You know, and kind of like even the coaching I do now, and there's a lot of great people I coach. We're actually watching one of them right now. You know, I have a style that I like to call an international style because I throw in a lot of different stuff. You know, it's not just about, oh, here's this. I you know, I learn catch. I learn, you know, like I love to wrestle, but nobody's paying to see me do it. You know what I'm saying? That's not what they want me to do. They, you know, I'm not going to go out here and start chaining around and purely wrestling with you and going hold for hold. Can I? Yeah. Does anybody want to see me do that? No. So it was like the mentality of just getting those opportunities and meeting the right people and kind of, you know, having the right conversation, saying the right thing and getting the opportunity. And then when you get the opportunity, this is the one thing I don't think people realize now. Like this right here is Leo's, like he never wrestled for this company. They booked this match on my word. And I mean, now Leo, I think after we had this match, they brought Leo back without me. Like even if I wasn't on the show. I mean, I know Leo wrestled for them a bunch of times. This is like it's like a job interview sometimes. You know, it's you got to go and you got to prove, and then it's about what you do next. And you know, okay, hey, you did this great, kid. Now go out here and show you're worth it. You know, show that what we saw, this is really you with somebody else. Wrestle DJ. We already know what DJ is, what he can do. You know, it's great he's your coach or whatever you want to call me. And now do it on your own, you know, and they do. And that was kind of something that I think like really developed through Europe and Japan. Japan was where I probably strive the most because I fit just like my style, my mentality, you know, my size, the look, etc. What I do very well there. But even like companies like this and in Europe and stuff, you just kind of you got to look at it and go, well, what am I going to do next? I got here. Now what? How do I take this and go, oh, I really want to come back. Hey, I really want to make more money. Or, hey, I really want these matches with the rest of this guy.
Yeah.
And it really spun from there. And those connections, like, you know, you get connected with WXW. Then I met Trent Seven. And then, you know, Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate and all these other guys. And you just start meeting them and just start going, oh, who are you working for? You know, what's this place? Oh, yo, can I roll with you? Can I get his contact? Can you put in a word? Can you get me on? You know, that was a conversation. I'm here. Can they get me on? You know, in England, it was, you know, the Knight family really helped me. Soraya Yeah, Saray got me booked. So many places, I mean, back then though, you had to do these Brian Dixon tours, and they weren't always the best, but things like Sanjay Bagger and
Mhm.
as a wrestler, you might know who these people are. I mean, maybe fans
Yeah, I
don't,
know who he
but
is, Sanjay.
yeah, Sanjay's the guy now. Brian's not really the guy, but it was like they were rough,
I know Brian
and
also.
if you got in the beginning there was times they were rough, so you had to get out there and make your name. You got a lot of what people nowadays call reps, and you got a lot of in-ring experience, but like I'm not a big fan of reps anymore. I'm a quality over quantity person, so like if you're going to do something in the rep's got to be a good rep. Don't just go out there just to do it. You got to get something out of it. And if you don't, you're wasting your time. It's like lifting. If you properly don't do, if you do a squat wrong, you're getting nothing out of it. There's no benefit to it. There's no benefit to it. Why the hell are you doing it? So it's pointless. So I
Yeah,
told you I'll rant. You got to cut me off. The caffeine's hitting me.
no problem.
So
Like wrestling in Japan, that's obviously something nowadays that wrestlers strive for. All international wrestlers around the world want to wrestle in Japan, and even like you being able to wrestle there is awesome. But outside of wrestling, something I'm really interested in is the lifestyles in Japan. So, what was some of the hardest things you had to adapt to, and maybe some of the weirdest things that you ate, and just the lifestyle in Japan? What's it like?
hardest things for me personally. I am big and nothing there is. Cities are huge, but I mean, you would sleep in a bed and the bed would only come to like my knees. You know what I mean? Like it was rough at times. Going on tour was rough. I remember the first time going to like I was so young. The first time we were on tour, we went to a bathhouse, and I was like, "What the? This is weird." You see it in like TV and movies and stuff, but like you're doing it. And you're doing it like every other day because you're just getting on the bus, going to the next town. And it was very weird. I think. I mean, obviously there were some things that I think kind of threw me off. Like eating there really, really like I've never gone into like a convenience store or like a 7-Eleven or garage or whatever you guys call it where you are, and guys will just go in, take a wooden stick, stab a fish, and then eat just like I was like, what the hell is going like I was like, I'm not doing that. So and I think ever since my first tour of Japan, and I've done like 52, 53 of them now. I was like, I'm never eating seafood again. Which is really hard when you're in Japan. It kind of sucks. So you got to kind of, the cultures of every company, like everywhere, not just Japan, but like I remember there was a show. I think it was the second time I was in Mexico. We went down there. The promoter put us in the hotel and said, you can only walk these blocks, but if you go after this block, you're going to be in trouble. And we're like, why? He's like, oh, you might get shot. So, and I was like, what? He's like, just go anywhere here. You need food. Any of these places take care of you, whatever. And I was just like, what? We're Mexico City, and I'm like, okay. And then the first night we go and we do this indie show, and it's like under a tent. Don't get me wrong, they had a packed house, but there's like, we're doing this match and there's like chickens running around the ring, and I'm like, what the is go like this was like, it was just an experience I didn't have at the time. And then the next night we're in Arena del Mexico, which is like 10,000 people and like production out like and you're just sitting here going, I was wrestling where chickens and dogs were chasing, like, what I'm saying, last night, and now I'm in here and this place is, it's kind of a mind thing. So the culture of things is like so different to what you grow up with, and now I've had all these experiences, so now I get to understand it, and I also portrayed and and teach it in wrestling. Like I think wrestling, a lot of wrestling is culture based, on where you're from and what your expectations is. And now I think that culture is bleeding over because you're starting to see like in Europe, the crowd chants and sings, and it's like football games in Europe. Like they're not the same as they are here, but now that culture, like now that WWE has, kind of put Europe on the map a little more and made it more of a regular stop and a pay-per-view, you're starting to see fans go, going, oh, Cody Rhodes. Oh, so that stuff was happening 15, 20 years ago, like in places in Europe, and now it's starting to get seen here. So the culture was different. And in Japan, it's like that too. Like there's an expectation of like, I remember the first time I was in Corrigan Hall and you're seeing all the names that are signed on the wall and the legacy that's been there. And I remember them coming to me and saying, today, very stiff show. And I was like, what? I was like, it's a very stiff show. Like what? Today, Corrigan Hall, big show, very stiff. And I was like, are you messing with me? Like, so, and then I got put into the main event and it was like the first shot that I took was like a forearm that was like, it felt like somebody swung a bat at my face. And I was like, oh, so this is where we're going. Okay, cool. And I don't mind being hit. Like that doesn't bother me. But I was like not prepared for what they meant. But the culture there was like, this needs to be so believable as a fight because of how it was styled. And here, if you would have did that here, the boys in the back would have probably had your ass. Some of them would have been like, why are you fucking being so stiff? And, but over there, it was like, no, today we would go into a town show, it'd be, oh, today, easy show. No problem. But then you would come into like a Corrigan or a bigger building, or something that was on on TV, like if they're filming for Samurai or something. Oh no, you're going in. Like you better be ready. I did some death matches over there because I was like, oh, I'm gonna can I throw you off the balcony? And I'm like looking at the balcony going, it's like 5 stories up, dude. He's like, whatever. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. We'll figure it out. What am I bumping on? We have many tables. I'm looking at these Japanese tables going, these are like bricks.
Oh.
I'm not going to break these things. And I did, but, it's like, you're starting to see this and I'm like, and then like, it's like over there, like we would go over on tours and I'm not really doing death matches over there. They don't want me to, they want me to do the strong style fighting, which is, I mean, I'm sitting here laughing, watching WWE right now all the time, because Walter's like a weird twin of mine. We've known each other 20 some years, or Gunther, whatever the hell he want to call him. Like he's over here doing stuff. I'm like, he's been doing the same stuff he beat John Cena. He was doing that stuff years ago. He's just fatter. He's just had more size on him now. It's, I make jokes. I'll send him a text message, be like, oh, Jenny got you in shape, you son of a bitch. Something, it's just weird. And now I'm seeing these guys going, man, I'm so proud of them. Like Tommy End or Aleister Black or whatever. Like, Tommy's stayed in my house more times than I can count. My wife loves him. I remember first time we went, like he came here and was like, we can get chicken and rice for like $7. I was like, yeah, eat this all the time. He's like, this is amazing. Because he's from Europe and it's a lot more expensive. It's a lot harder to get. Sorry, I'm just telling jokes and rants. So it's what I do. Cut me off. Kick me in the gut, hit me with that DDT. I'm good to go. So.
Yeah, so wrestling, I want to bring this comment in because we've kind of talked about your wrestling internationally, and this is something I've interviewed. You know this guy anyway, Evan Ginsberg. He's the associate producer of The Wrestler, and I'd seen you in the movie actually when watching it, and I thought to myself, oh, that's DJ Hyde. So TZS Videos asks, 1 minute. Tell us about your time in The Wrestler, please.
So obviously that came through Out of the Wild Simone. Originally, I was brought in for two things. One, to help coach. And it wasn't Mickey Rourke at the time. It was actually Nicolas Cage. So Nicolas Cage was going to be the original wrestler. Somehow that fell through and he had to go film or do something else. I don't remember exactly everything happened because I wasn't really privy to it. I was brought in to do that and to basically play one of two roles. I was either going to be the best friend role or I was going to be the role that the Necro Butcher played. Because I had the CZW background and I could do that. There's a lot of things that are in that movie that you probably don't know. Like when Mickey, and there's a lot of stuff that was shot that you guys nobody got to see. Like when Mickey Rourke takes the chair and bangs it up against his head, that's actually a chair hitting me. So like him gigging, like him blading, that was all me teaching him how to do that. That was all like, I cut the blades for him. I did like, hey, it's this. Look, watch, blah, blah, blah. Mickey was, and we're at some little small building in North Jersey. You know, it was kind of cool. The strip club stuff.
Yeah.
With Marissa Tomei, myself, and G's and a couple other people. We're in those scenes. You just don't see us because we don't have a whole lot of lines or anything. You know, I've been fortunate enough to be in a bunch of movies, but that was like one there that was wrestling related. Like I've done stunts, you know, every now and then you might see me get like beat up or thrown over by like Keanu Reeves and certain things, or mostly Keanu because I've done a lot of his stuff. Because the stunt coordinator for The Wrestler happens to work on the John Wick films. So, you know, I've got to do a lot of those things, but The Wrestler was just so, like, it was my first real, like, okay, this is a big production. They're going to do things this way. It just kept moving and moving and moving. And then Darren, we were Cage of Death 9, I think. And it was like Team NBA versus Team CZW. And I think in my career, it was like where Danny Havoc finally gets over on me and kicks me off the stage or off the top of the cage. And I go through this big, crazy barbed wire thing. And Darren and Mickey and all them were there. And I remember when they saw Necro, they were like, Necro Butcher fits everything that people were thinking of a deathmatch wrestler. Necro, when I think he got his time to come in the cage, he just beat the shit. But I remember one point he was hitting me with a shoe and just like whacking me. I was like, you son of a bitch, still. And he wasn't even in there that long. Like he got rolled up. The last two guys were me and Danny Havoc at the top of the cage. But you know, I know Darren fell in love with that character. Like there are times, there were scenes in that movie, like you see, like Zandig's in that movie paying Mickey Rourke for the match.
I think you've muted your mic here. You've muted your mic. You just have to hit unmute at the bottom.
Oh, sorry, my bad. I was saying Zandig was in the movie too, like paying Mickey Rourke and all these other guys, and you know, you're sitting there with all these like fake posters and stuff in the background. It's like it's such a different thing when you go and you do these movies, and you get to meet a lot of unique people. You know, I've never gone out here in front of a live crowd, done one like, okay, we're gonna run this little shoulder tackle spot and then stop. All right, let's go get some catering, come back, run it again. Same crowd. And I'm just sitting there like, what? You know, and at that time it was a little weird. Now I understand the process of it, but I mean, I can tell you it was just such a great experience and opened so many doors for me personally. To do a lot of great things. I've done a lot of stunt work, a lot of movies, to actually help financially with a whole bunch of stuff for CZW. But it really, really was an experience. And getting to meet Mickey and Marissa and all them, and like literally like I would tell you, Marissa Tomei is probably one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. She's just so down to earth, cool. And I mean, she's out here playing stripper, you know, and now in my mind, she's Spider-Man's mom. So it's just their aunt. It's just like one of those weird things. Like Keanu Reeves is probably one of the greatest human beings on the planet. You know, takes care of everybody. It's just you can't say enough about them, but you're looking at them like they're big movie stars. You think they're something they're not. No, they're just like us. They're cool. So.
Yeah. And want to bring in this comment in to kind of talk more about your wrestling career. Darren Whiteside asks, how did the storyline of ROH invading CZW come about? It was genius.
So at the time, one of the things I will say, John may be the owner of the company. He really wasn't the business person. John really, there were times, battles, like tons of them. There'd be times where we would be like, hey, John, the show's Saturday. What do you want to do? You know, like, what do you want to book? So the owner of, one of the owners of what you now call IWTV, his name is Mike Burns. Mike Burns and Gabe Sapolsky made a deal to do the angle. Now, Gabe has been a longtime friend of mine. He now runs the WWE ID stuff. Gabe was the booker of Ring of Honor at the time, and Ring of Honor was really suffering. That program was supposed to go. The promo might have been one of those epic programs in independent wrestling, but it was supposed to go 2 years. And what happened was John and Gabe could not get along at all. Like if you watch even the blow-offs of that, it's not CZW. It's not the Nick Gages and you know, the Zandigs and those guys. It started well. And the concept with it was like, okay, we're gonna make stars. We're gonna bring business up. We're gonna make stars. Like even the program I was supposed to be in, if you watch the early bit of it, like all the pair downs and like the run-ins on almost every show were supposed to be programs. Like my program was supposed to be Samoa Joe. And me and Joe know each other. So it's like two big guys going at it. It was supposed to help bring me up. That was the idea of it. So, and then what ended up happening was creative differences never happened. And that was just something with using, and I was not the only person. Trust me, there were a lot of other guys. Supposed to get a lot of people. So Gabe only wanted a few guys, and he got those guys. You know, he wanted Necro, he wanted Hero and Claudio, and a couple other guys. And once he got them, you know, Roderick Strong's, the guys that were being made in CZW, there always used to be an old faux pas that John and Ann, who owned IWA Mid South, they made the stars, and Gabe and WWE and them would buy them because they had big time contract people that were, you know, paying them. They leave for more money, which is completely fine. So the feud kind of saved Ring of Honor financially at the time, and it ended about as. It probably took longer to get everybody to agree to everything than it went, because it was supposed to go 2 years, and it never did. I mean, there were times where I remember we ran Best of the Best in the afternoon because ROH booked a show in Edison and needed like Christopher Daniels for the show. And it was like, hey man, he's going to the final, like we're doing the shoot here, like we need like this. Business was just not good. It just wasn't working out because I don't think they really had it thought out. And then when John and Gabe, I can remember like them just arguing. Like, and Mike Burns was like the middleman. You know, he was kind of the creative guy helping behind the scenes because he owned Smart Mark Video, which is now IWTV. And you know, Burns's MO was, I'm gonna sell tapes. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm gonna sell tape, make money. The companies are gonna make money, but we're gonna sell these tapes. We're gonna sell these DVDs, whatever it is. And the talent was just like, okay, we don't know what's going on. Like, and then there was like stuff that was shot on the fly. Like BJ Whitmer had he had an alcohol problem and they poured beer on him and he wasn't really comfortable with it. So, because it was like, hey, I would have did this, but somebody just smarten me up. Don't just do the shit. It's not cool, and unfortunately in wrestling, a lot of stuff just happens. It's you ask for forgiveness, not permission. And Ring of Honor and CZW were ran two complete different ways. Ring of Honor was very controlled, very like Gabe is a certain way. Even to this day, he's probably a lot better now than he used to be, but he's a certain way about things, and John is go out there and get over. John is go out there, don't care. Put on the best match you can. It doesn't matter if the guy behind you can do better or not. Do it anyway. Where Gabe would be like, no, we're doing, we're building to this. We're doing that. I need you to go out here and do this. John was not that way. John would be just like, well, why didn't you just do the craziest stuff you could?
Yeah.
Well, we had 5 minutes and we're in match 1. Like what's the main event going to do? It's you would have that conversation. Like John would be like that. He'd be like, well, tell him to step up and figure it out. Where instead of like, there was really no plan. I think that's why it fell apart. I mean, even if you look at the Ring of Honor, like Cage of Death, like Zandig didn't even go. It was like, why is Chris Hero in a Cage of Death? Like, I don't get me wrong, I love Chris, but why him and Claudio? Like, no, this doesn't make sense. That they're not Cage of Death like when you think CZW guys, but they were the guys that they went. And then I looked at it as a huge negative for CZW. I still do. I understand business. I have a business degree from a very small school in Delaware now. But CZW's had a lot of feuds with a lot of places, but you'll learn this thing. You get Chris Hero over, he's a guy, you make him something, Claudio, the whole nine. And he starts working there, and you don't see him here too much. Same thing with Roderick Strong, same thing with a lot of guys. AJ Styles, a lot of these guys, CZW made them stars, especially in the market, and then Ring of Honor could pay them more and gave them more dates.
Yeah.
And there's some similarities to that right now. Some things going on out in the industry.
Yeah, like when you became after the ROH storyline, which was probably one of the most famous things to happen in CZW. There was a lot of things happening, but that was maybe one of the most well-regarded famous things to happen in CZW. How did you take ownership of CZW? How did that all come around?
So Torment Death 8. At that point, I had been working for WXW, and we were bringing over Thumbtack Jack, and TJ was the new hot deathmatch guy, John was going through a lot of personal stuff. He had a venue booked, I think a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks out. It all fell apart. And by that point, I had already been training people, doing things behind the scenes. I had already been handling a lot of roles that like management would handle. And TOD fell apart. Now TOD is like it's a show that like we have to have. We have to not just do it because we're CW, but like because it makes money. And when you don't have a good show, you need that money. Or it's, hey, the things that leading up to this that we had to borrow money to pay for. Yeah, this. And that TOD was just probably one of the most infamous. It's where Nick Gage got helicoptered out. I did the one at the time probably the craziest match ever with TJ. I went out and figured out. I made that thing happen. In a week and a half, I said, okay, what do we got to do? I made every phone call. I filed every permit. I did everything. I talked to my parents. I was like, look, we have the room. I need to pull this off. blah, 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 blah. I'm going to do this. Boom, 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 boom. And then what TOD has become now, out on the farm, it's an experience. Started and it was something, and I think it was something special. And I pulled the whole show off. On top of, I went out there and wrestled. Okay. I went out when Nick Gage got hurt and helicoptered out. I went out in the main event and got destroyed. And that was also the first time ever that show, I got knocked out that day because I did take a cinder block to the head for some dumb reason. And, and at the end of the night, I still did what needed done. I still got everything taken care of. The next day or two, I think it was a couple days after that, I remember sitting with Zandig and Maven Bentley and John saying, "You're going to be a great promoter someday." He goes, "I never could have did what I couldn't do this without you." He goes, you know what you're doing. And by that point, me and Maven had already been running like these small, like charity type shows for things through something called the NBA. And, and then we had something called Next, and eventually became Stars of the Future and stuff like that, because it was always about development. I have ideas and I could execute some of them at time. And they were like us running shows, but doing them for charitable reasons. Or like Next was for our students. They were like a Wednesday night show, or it became Stars of the Future because, WWE, long story there. But, I'm sure everybody knows what NXT is now. Yeah, we've had a lot of stuff prior to, those places. It comes from somebody. So the idea was like, hey, we're going to run a show, charge a couple, $5, but we'll do it on like a Wednesday, and take some of the younger talents and put them in the ring with some of the local veterans, and then let the local veterans teach them in the ring. Because one of the things, I learned as a coach, after a while, you're going to stop listening to me. You're going to want to be whoever the big star is, and you'll listen to them. Like, these people go to these seminars all the time, and they're like, "Well, DJ, they say the same stuff you do. I feel like I wasted my money." Well, that guy was Booker T. Maybe you'll listen to him. I don't know. Like, I can't tell you. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are so many times I've heard that from some of my students, and I'm just like, yeah, but when this person says it, why is it you do it? If I say it, it's just you're around me all the time. You're comfortable with me. But back to the main point of what it was, and at that point, John was going through some personal things, like family things, like real life, hard stuff. He lost a son. His other son got hurt really bad. He's having a lot of financial troubles. And I think the very next show we had after TOD, usually after we have a big show like that, we don't do well. All right, because people spend their money, to get it. And John overbooked it, and I remember him making the call going, "Shut it down." And he was serious. I mean, he's made that call several times. And he was like, "Shut it down now." Like, he was calling like everybody that did everything, and basically just like, "We're done. I'm out." Like, he didn't want to do it. And I remember going to Maven and saying, "All right, look, what if I buy the company?" And he's like, "How are you going to do that?" I was like, "Well, I have a little bit of money, but it's not a lot of money." And so I went to John and said, "How much?" And we came up with a number. So I went to what I always go to, my family. I mortgaged my grandmother's house. It's basically what I did. She allowed me to, on a home that was paid off. 70-some-year-old woman at the time, and who is going to be 98 in March, and allowed me to mortgage the house and buy the company. And I came in and I had a lot of new ideas. I had a lot of things I wanted to do. And things that I was fighting with John about for years, probably. Like guys like John Moxley becoming world champion. Guys like Egotistico Fantastico. They look like wrestlers. They're big. They're what, they're marketable. I incorporate as a company. We have, everything before was kind of ran through third parties. But everything, I brought it all in house. I originally remember at the time I called Gabe Sapolsky. And was like, look, I want you to come in and help me book this. I can't, it's a lot. And my thought process at the time was like, Gabe's a name, and that was when Evolve started. And that was already on their radar. They were already planning it, and he was already attached to it. I brought Mike Burns back because I was like, hey, I need this. And, another way that blew up in my face down the line anyway. But, I had this vision of something for everybody. We had this roster. Oh, God damn, that roster. The roster I had, not when I took over, but after I kind of got it where I wanted it to be, was just incredible. I mean, insane guys. Most of them were being coached by me at the time. I was helping guys get in places, sending them internationally. We were running shows in Europe. I was getting people all over the place and it was just making them better. And, then WWE was calling and, you start seeing that kind of stuff happen. And it was just, things were just clicking. But, behind the scenes too, there's, my real life and things happen. And, wrestling rings aren't cheap. I think somebody asked the other day, like, oh, how much does a ring cost? Like $3-4 grand? I was like, go here and look it up. They're like, what? Like 10 grand? I was like, oh, look how much the delivery cost is. It was just like crazy stuff. And, so I incorporated it. I had our business license. I trademarked stuff. I started making deals. I started saying, okay, we need to figure out sponsors. We need to figure out, why are we paying these people 50% when we have somebody right here that can do this job? Things like asking business questions. And, unfortunately, people didn't like that. And I became the bad guy really quickly because I went from being their friend and being like one of the boys to telling them what to do. And as I said earlier, people like Joker and G's, these were my clique. When I'm going to them going, no, you're doing this. And they're basically like, fuck you, DJ. No, this is what I want you to do. And wrestlers are a unique bunch. They're all about, most of them are about themselves. They're trying to get their shit in and make themselves a star. Everybody wants to be that type of guy. Everybody wants to make the most amount of money. Everybody wants to be the guy, and they'll do whatever they have to get there. So it really started damaging my relationship because I took offense to a lot of things at the time. Instead of saying, all right, I understand this, let me take this in another direction, because I was just kind of frustrated going, hey, I'm in this role. I don't understand why you're not listening to me. Like any other job, it's like, if you're the boss, you're the boss. Do what we ask. They looked at it as like, no, I'm still DJ. He's one of the boys. So we came up with some amazing stuff and great stories, great talents, people being brought in. But there were a lot of times behind the scenes, I was the bad guy. So
yeah, and as we're sort of coming to the end of the podcast, I want to get these few topics in to talk about with you. So, as you became the promoter, you mentioned there about a lot of the wrestlers not liking you because you went from a friend to telling them what to do. Did you experience much because you were? I saw from watching recently CZW from what it was before and what it is now. You still keep that ultra violent style, but you still have a lot of different different styles in it. Obviously, you have technical wrestling, all that kind of stuff. But being the promoter, how'd you find a lot of the fans wanted to see just hardcore, and you're getting a lot of hate from that? Like when people present CZW's dead.
it's not so much dead. It's so much that business dictates everything.
Yeah.
COVID, at the end of the day, it's still business, and COVID crushed the business. There was a lot of legal battles during COVID. I booked we just announced Tournament of Death UK, and 7 years ago was when we were originally going to do that, as well as many things in other countries. And myself, Joe Gacy, and Anthony Green took a little tour over there to do the announcement. It was what I was calling the reward tour. I was bringing everybody. You were the T-shirt salesman, the ticket person. You were on this tour with us, and I invested almost everything I had in it because I had at the time, I felt like these people had my back. I'm going to reward them. And unfortunately, due to COVID, it all blew up in my face. And when pro wrestling is your living, and you can't really do that for about 3 years, it goes away. And then AEW kind of took most of our talent. Then WWE took a lot of the talent. Then the competition came up. And the competition got their cool points off of us and, kind of took our credibility and hurt me because the attack was on me. There's a lot of things I wish I legally could speak to people about and say, well, here, because I have, I can show people, I have all the receipts, the text messages, the emails, and the conversations, but I just kept looking at things like, okay, how's it going to be? And during COVID, I didn't want to take a chance because I knew the difference between CZW, especially now in America, and all the other brands that are even the top brands, okay? We're the legacy company. There are companies, right? What I would probably say is one of the top, if not the top brand, that is based off of CZW. All right. And I legally can't speak about them in public. But realistically, if they make a mistake in our area, they do something, I don't know, illegal, tickety, something happens, I'm the one getting the call. They're going to call us before they call them because we're the ones who are known by them. We've caused the trouble. We've been the guys in the past. We're the reason that Christy Whitman made a law and kicked us out of New Jersey in the first place. Yeah. So, and now that law's not on the books. So it's tough. And, when you come back and you're not the top dog at that time, a lot of the talent nowadays, they don't understand. And even the talent that I train, they don't understand that what business truly is. They chase clout, they chase the next booking and whatever's cool, but not what's best for their career or what's best for them. They're chasing I want to wrestle this guy because this match is going to be fire. No, you're going to wrestle this name. If you're wrestling a guy, and I'll use Tommy Dreamer because I talked about it, you're not having your match. You're having the Tommy Dreamer match with your stuff sprinkled in. We know what Tommy Dreamer is going to do. Everybody does. And that's what the fans are paying to see. They're paying to see him do the ECW and all that. That's what they want, And unfortunately, that's what people think. A lot of people think is what gets them over, or I'm on this cool show, but I'm there and I'm just getting beat up. You know what? There's a lot of guys that get booked for WWE and AEW. You see them as security people, but they just get their asses kicked. Nothing. That does nothing for them. Nobody cares. Not from a fan perspective. Maybe behind the scenes somebody does, but not from a fan perspective. So it hurt. It really, really did hurt. So, and I had to rebuild, and I'm still rebuilding. We went from a team behind the scenes of probably 50, 60 people to there is 7 of us right now that do behind the scenes. And some of us, and including me, I don't know how you put that match up on here. I couldn't tell you how to do that. I have no clue how to do that. And you know how much content I own? It's ridiculous. All right. It's thousands upon hours, and it ain't just even CZW. It's WSU. I own a bunch of other stuff too that I have purchased through my day. And I'm going, I couldn't put a video on YouTube because I don't know how. I've been shown a couple of times. I just don't remember it. And, you know, we had a team. It used to be like, hey, we need this YouTube stuff done. You know, hey, I want to reach out to 20 podcasters and let's get the boys booked this month. And I don't know, try to just get the word out that way, because that's a good way to do it for the next couple of shows. You know, see if we can get them on for 10 minutes. That's all we need, you know, and somebody would do that. Now it's like, okay, who can do it? Who's got the time? You know, where can we go with it? You know, who's not working their day job? So, like, I have to work later today. So it just kind of sucks for me, but that's the position I'm now in. So it's tough, you know. Venues, I'll give you a great example of this. So we've ran more shows than anyone in history, including ECW, at the 2300 Arena to this day.
The ECW Arena, no one else, like.
Yep. Yeah. I used to pay a couple $1,000s, not just a month. I used to pay as a month to run a show and to have our training facility there. Okay. I think it was like $3 or $4 grand. All right. I know it was 3, but I think it might have been a little more because we had the school there. Now, today, all right, and it's a 1,000-seat building, by the way. To walk in, just to walk in, they want $16,000. I don't have that. That's insane to me. In Philadelphia, if you're an independent wrestling company, that's where people know wrestling is. And now they don't have that much wrestling there unless it's like AEW or WWE or something like that. But $16,000 to an independent wrestling promoter, I mean, it's crazy. They definitely don't want me doing death matches in there. That's been one of the more emphatic things I've been told. I mean, and that doesn't include production. That doesn't include licensing, insurance, doctor, not the marketing that you're going to have to do just to get enough people. Like, you're going to have to sell it out just to get that, just to pay that. That's before I brought in one talent, you know, and it's crazy. It's like how much some of these places are and how places don't want to work with us or don't want wrestling there. Like, since we've come back, we've been doing some free shows at Love Park. And it's been building every year. Like, this year we had over 3,000 people at one of them. So now the city, who we get a permit through, one person at the city saw that we had 3,000 people just show up. Just show up. It's Love Park. So now they want us to do it as a festival. So one of the permits is 10 grand. This is a free show. Like, this is me going to wrestlers saying, hey, please just come do this for us, you know, and asking them to spend their time to come out in the summer heat in Love Park. Don't get me wrong, it's a cool environment to wrestle. And now the city has decided that, okay, we let you do this for the last couple of years and you've done that, but now you're a festival. So to be a festival, you got to pay this. What about that day we only had like 200 people there? You know, I can't tell you what, it's a walk-up crowd, like, and it's free. I can't tell them to go away. You know, it's not like I'm charging tickets and I have, you know, some big security. Now they want that. It's just how it is. You know, athletic commissions, you know, you guys fans don't know what I have to do to put TOD on. Like, an ambulance alone is a couple grand just to sit there. They do nothing. They sit there. We also have our own doctors that we bring in. We have to blood test through the state's people, which sucks when you're doing it internationally, by the way. You have to go to a certain place at the state of Delaware to get HIV, hep tests. Like, everybody's in TOD is tested. All right. You have to get all these permits, and this is on my mother's property. Like, it's private property. I should be able to do what I want. Nope. I have to get a permit just so people can drive down the street. And all these things cost money. And it's all up front, which is what sucks. It gets harder every year because if you don't have that large crowd, like this year, if anybody watching this, if you watch Tournament of Death this year, It was a damn thunderstorm happened in the middle of that show. The stream went out, the power went out like 3 or 4 times. God, those fans, they stayed and supported us. And I will never forget that. All right, they stayed and supported us, and I was like, it was a crazy environment. It was badass, but I will remember the fans sitting there going, we don't care that a lightning bolt hit 20 feet away. You know, like, we're here to watch ultraviolence. It was just like, it was crazy. So, again, you always got to kick me in the stomach and cut me off, man. Come on. You've had a couple matches. It's okay. We work on the fly because I'll go.
Yeah,
I will.
So, wrestling with like something I'm really fascinated about you is you had experienced Shane Strickland, now known as Swerve Strickland, one of the most famous wrestlers in the world, and you saw the potential in him, and it just shows how experienced you are as a promoter. So, how do you what is like the first thing when you look at a wrestler? How do you realize that they're going to be a star? What's the kind of the sense?
A lot of guys like Shane. So I think one of the things that people don't know or may know, most of these wrestlers I've coached. Shane was a guy Shane, just like Leo, just like I don't know, Fox, Sammy, Moxley, a number of guys like they go out. I see them on some rando weird show. They're green. They just started, and you see what the potential is. You see, like, there's a lot of guys that have ability, but there's not a lot of guys who have the mentality. And Shane was special, you know, and just using him because he's that top guy, just like Moxley. Moxley was special. You could see it. Sammy, special. It's Adam Cole is a day one guy. Adam Cole's, Drew Gulak and stuff. They're from here. Trick Williams was sent to me by the WWE with 4 other people. You can sit here and see intangibles, but can you see the specialness of what they can be? And there's so many people. Mia Yim or Mi Chin, whatever the fuck you want to call her, Penelope Ford. There's a ton upon ton of people. Layla Hirsch. Okay, there's something's there, but you got to find a way for them to hit that button. And if they don't hit that button, you've got to push them. And sometimes that hurts me because to get things out of people sometimes and to get them to be who they have to be, it may not always work. Like you can't take one direction. I'm going to give you some great examples of that. So take Maxwell Jacob Friedman. I didn't originally teach him how to pump or anything like that, but you can ask my wife if I trained him. I did teach him, Max Caster, Kristen Statlander, all them, Bear Brunson. Go back and watch them coming down, on our YouTube channel for Dojo Wars. How do you think they got in CZW? It was a path, but at one point, Max stopped listening to me because he was successful. He had it. It was there. You just have to guide it because he's either going to take his career and he's going to run it down one path and it's going to go real bad, or he's going to become the guy that we see now. And sometimes it's not about just like coaching. I don't need to teach a lot of these guys. A lot of guys get sent to me. You got to buy into my mentality. It's completely different than anybody else's. Like as a coach, even as a promoter, I don't believe in faces and heels in 2026. It doesn't happen. It's not real. I believe in characters. I believe in character motives. I don't write, I don't like format wrestling, like shining the baby face, and wrestlers and people in wrestling know what I'm talking about. But I don't care about that. That means nothing to me anymore because it's not how the world works. Things have changed. Good and bad is determined by every single person sitting there. Something we talk about flavors of ice cream a lot as a big thing that people talk about. Well, flavors of ice cream is the same in the real world. People don't like people because they live 2 blocks away, or they have a different religion, or they're a different color, or whatever. We're all people. There's only one race. It's the human race. You know, I mean, genetics and science dictate certain things. And then culture. Okay, because your culture is different, you're still a human. What's it matter? But that's how people are. They don't like things that are different from what they are and they believe. And every single person believes something different. So something you may like, the guy sitting next to you might not. And vice versa. So you kind of have to figure out like what people want. So good and bad is determined by the person who is sitting there. But there are things that if you can make people feel a way, that works. I'm all about emotion. I'm all about, you know, how we get that in long-term storylines. The indies are hard though, because you got to get commitments. And I mean, we have trouble booking buildings out. You know, we can't get dates from buildings we run consistently because they might want to do something else. You know, I book an international style. You're going to hear in American wrestling, most people are like, you got to work the right arm and work the left arm and the left leg. And I'm going to tell you, no, that's stupid. If you see an injury, if somebody kicks a post or you know, you block a line and somebody's selling their arm, that's an injury attack. You know, you want to make it look like you're trying to win. The other stuff is character flaws and character things, like the Miz. The Miz has been the former world champion. He says all the time, I beat John Cena at WrestleMania. The problem is that his character flaw is his ego. You know, he has you beat, but he has to get up and throw it in the fan's face before he even tries to pin you. That's a character flaw. That's an ego thing. It's different from what people are taught. You know, it's taking somebody who's an athlete and is an intangible. Like, I can tell you, I get a lot of these NIL guys from WWE and at our school. Trick Williams was probably the Oba Trick. I mean, because I didn't have Oba that long. But Trick Williams is probably the only one. Like, he came with a whole group of people. He was the only one that was like, okay, he's going to beat somebody. And he wasn't even the best in ring out of all of them. Not by far. On that mic, though, man, you give Matt Trick a mic, man. That kid, he can come up with some stuff. But you have to see that there's so much differences now.
Like even on SmackDown.
Pretty much. I mean, it's a little scripted, but they'll kind of like. I remember the first time he was in NXT, he was texting me going, I gotta pitch something to Shawn Michaels that I'm gonna say. How do I do that? I'm just like, okay, this is how you know. It's not a hard breakdown, but like when I book shows and I write stuff for people, and I've been doing this a long time, I have to understand that I'm a 47-year-old man, white man from Delaware. I can't sit here and take, a character like, say, like, I don't know, like, I can't tell Nick Gage how to be Nick Gage. I can't tell Deshaun Pratt how to be Deshaun Pratt. They are, I can bullet point. This is what I need out of it, Nikki. I can sit here and go, this is what I need to Nick Gage. But Nick Gage is going to go out there and MDK off. He's going to do all that. Like, I'm not going to be able to prevent that because that's what it is. Like, I tell people, like, Nikki's going to have a 6-minute entrance. What am I going to do? Let him go out here and it's what Nikki does now. It's it's hard communicating things to some like 20-year-old kid that doesn't get it yet. They're just trying to do it because they want booked here. We're trying to teach them how to be stars instead of just an indie wrestler. Like little things like psychology and but that's also why I've trained like a lot of people when they don't come to me to, hey, teach me how to wrestle. No, they come to me like, hey, teach me how to work, teach me how to elevate. That's usually what I'm good at, but you have to buy into my way. Because when I say something like, I don't believe in faces and heels, I'd say about 70% of people look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, nope.
I accredit most of my knowledge to Al Snow. So, like when it comes to like that kind of stuff, Al Snow and Pops are, masters of psychology to me. But I've elevated it a lot, and taken it to another level. So, how do you know? It's simple. It's the people that buy in and that go out there and execute. The people that feel, the people that have emotion. You can see that in people. I have a guy on my roster right now that is a comedy act. Okay, that we did an act where he had a blow-up shark with him. He's kind of like, his character is just a guy. His name's Brew Allen. He's just a guy who's like, an everyday man who just wants to sit on the beach, crack open his beer, lean back, relax, and go, and knock back about 3 or 4. All right. So he wrestles in some, like beach shoes or whatever. And he has a blow-up shark. That is his best friend. It's a guy in a blow-up shark outfit. So tournament to death, Brandon Watts killed the shark with light tubes. So not something traditionally DJ would do. We did a funeral as a segment for the shark. I watched people in the audience cry. Couldn't freaking believe it.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, we had like, and we're doing this at our brewery, by the way. It's the only place we do this. The brewery shows, and the urn for the shark was a big growler can. And Brew is out here giving this like eulogy for this shark, and people, and these were not like people that are like his friends. These are like wrestling fans. Like, I know who they are. We're like, and I'm just sitting here going, and Brew's not the best wrestler yet. I mean, he's still training, still got a lot to learn. But he connected with them over a blow-up chart. It's like, and people are like, I don't get it. And I'm like, when you go to Disneyland or Disney World and you go to see Mickey Mouse, is that Mickey Mouse? And you go, yeah, well, that there's a person in a costume there, right? Yeah, but that's Mickey Mouse. Just like his friend was a shark. And between me, you, and probably the audience, I'm going to bring the shark back, except now the shark's got to be a zombie. So not going to keep it around. It'll be funny, and the crowd will enjoy it. But the thing is, he's feuding with a guy called Brandon Watts. And, Brandon's going to be a top guy for sure. He has all the intangibles and the work rate and everything. And Brew is kind of in that mid card right now. But Brandon's got to be like the Miz, like Mike is kind of like, in a way, our truth. Our truth works. You know what I'm saying? He's out here in a bunny costume the other day doing a 5-knuckle shuffle. I watched it. I was like, only truth can pull this off and get it over. And people loved it. It was on ESPN. I was like, what the, because you need that one guy, but you also need the Miz to be the guy to take it, the guy who's main evented, beat John Cena, all those things. So,
yeah, absolutely. But as we're coming to the end of the podcast, I just want to promote you a wee bit. So, you can visit CZW at czwrestling.com. You can follow them on Instagram at Combat Zone Wrestling, and on YouTube, you can follow them at just simply CZW in capitals. Now, I want to thank you very much for coming on. You've been it's been an incredible interview, very insightful about your career. It's been one I've wanted to have for a while. And but I have 2 more questions for you. So what's next for CZW and DJ Hyde?
2026 is a transition for everything. So we've been in a huge rebuild. 2026 is taking steps. We're bringing back the Ultraviolent Championship. We have a venue now that is a venue that will allow us to do that. We'll be announcing that venue here later. What's this week coming? Which will be CZW's big anniversary weekend. So we also have a third building that is in Philadelphia that we're going to be running, and we're going to be, obviously we announced TOD UK. we have some aspirations to grow. So we're also going to be utilizing some new talent. We just reopened the wrestling school, so that's kind of going and going in a different direction. So this is the year of growth. So I think there's two big main goals. It's getting back to being who we are. Telling stories, obviously, is probably because that's what I want to do, but also rebuilding with our fans, not just our fans, but all fans. And because we need a lot of help. We need people like even yourself, like you're a podcaster. Why can't we have, we have to get in front of people. We have to let people know, hey, CZW's out there. We're back. We're doing this, and I have to find the next generation. If I can't find the next generation, I have to create them. And part of that is creating some, part of that is bringing some in. But ultimately giving fans what they want. So, we have our next show here is coming up here in January on the 17th, but our big anniversary weekend is going to be February 28th and March 1st. February 28th is at the Champion Creek Brewery. That's our traditional regular show that we're doing right now. But our new venue, which is, I'll just announce it here, Cooper's Riverside, which is in Trenton. It's a deathmatch building. It's a building that is going to allow us to do whatever we want as long as we clean it up. And, they're going to have a VIP seat where you get, open bar and a buffet and a whole bunch of other stuff. A little goodie bag full of CZW merch and stuff. But, we're going to try to create an experience there. And I think that focusing on experiences, focusing on doing good business, and we do need to find some help. We need to find some sponsors and things like that. But that's going to take people coming in to do it. It's going to take great people, great connections to do these things. And once we do them, the next level is going to hit. So a lot of it is now getting back out there, slowly traveling out of the markets, rebuilding things. And I feel like Philadelphia is wide open again. I'd love to find the right venue in Philly and just take it over. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be 2,300 Arena, but we'll figure it out from there. So, if there's anybody out there that's local or anybody that's not local that can help us, I mean, we need it all right now. I will say right now we are a bit struggling, but as this team grows, we keep getting bigger and bigger. And as things start flowing better, we'll be able to do it. We'll be launching our own streaming site soon. So there's a lot in the works for 2026. So much. We just need to execute and bring the people in, and the talent needs to execute. And I believe they will.
Absolutely. It seems like a really big year for CZW. And just remember, if you need any help with promoting anything or even promoting your wrestlers, just contact me. I can get any of your wrestlers promoted on my podcast.
If you like them, I can get you. I mean, some of the deathmatch guys aren't easy. Some of them are, but Nick Gage isn't always the easiest. But we can get him on here. So it's always a challenge, but we can get him on here.
But absolutely, but again, if you need any help with promoting any CZW shows, just ask me.
All about it.
Yeah, and just the next thing, someone commented there they wanted to see one more time how they can find CZW. So I would really recommend following CZW in possibly one of their biggest years. You can check them out at czwwrestling.com. You can follow them on Instagram at Combat Zone Wrestling, and you can see all their YouTube stuff.
I think it's all at Combat Zone or something on all the social medias. So,
and just have one more question for you before we leave. What advice would you give to a young trainee wrestler trying to start out in wrestling?
There's a lot of advice I would give you. First, ask questions. If you're going to go to a wrestling school and you're going to get in this, make sure you want to do it. I will say this about pro wrestling. It takes and takes and takes and takes a lot, and it gives very little. But that very little is the greatest feeling you're ever going to have. But I will also tell you this. As somebody who comes from a huge sports background, who has an education, who, you know, has also been in the banking and real world and done that in his life. Pro wrestling, to be successful, is one of the hardest, most difficult challenges you will take on in your life. It is a lifestyle to be one of those guys. It is a lot of work. And if it's something you want to do, make sure you find the right people, because there's not a lot of, and then guys that you think are the right people, see what they talk. Make sure environments are good for you. Again, I know I personally don't connect with everybody, so I have people that I bring in to help me with that. And, you know, I might not understand a 20-some-year-old kid, but I have people that will and will be honest with me, so I'll know how to do that or get that person to help me do that. So, you know, make sure that you're prepared and ready. And I'm not talking about like, oh, I got to get in shape. And don't waste your time with that. That's what wrestling school's for. They're going to get being jacked. I've seen the biggest, most jacked people ever get into a wrestling ring, and they look like they're going to die. And right now, I'm in the worst shape I've been in years. But you know, get to a quality place. If you have a question, you can always email me. I mean, I have no problem answering questions to anybody. You know, you can always email me, find me on social media. You know, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. DJ Hyde at czwrestling.com is my email. Or, you know, you can even email me at my personal email, which is DeeJayMarkland at Yahoo. I mean, that's usually where I respond from anyway. If you DM me on any social media, I mean, I might not get back to you right away, but I will get back to you within a day. You know, and I'm happy to always set up phone calls and answer questions and stuff, just as long as I can work around my schedule, because you definitely want to get to the right places. And even if maybe I'm not the right place, I'll recommend you to a place that is, where I know you'll get get quality and go from there. And then once you get to start, you'll know. I mean, if you want to pursue it and go other places and do other things, you'll know. Maybe you just want to have fun. Maybe you just want to, you know, be at that wrestling at your local place, but realize the guy next to you might not. So you just have to take that serious and be ready. So just realize that there's not that many people in the ring, and there's a lot of people on the other side of the guardrail. So, you know, if you want to be one of those special people, be prepared for it, and be prepared that it's not easy. It really is not, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, it really is. You know, I've known that from how long I've been training. But thank you so much for coming on. It's been an honor having you on. You know the stuff that
It's been an honor being on the show. I mean, and fans, if you get to listen to this interview, this young man is, I will say, is top notch quality. He's done. I've done a lot of these. I was very impressed with how he handles things. So, if anybody else out there is looking to do an interview or he hits you up, he definitely has, you know, my seal to get you on. So I was very impressed on how he handles things. So did want to put you over, and it was a solid show. So wish we had more time, but I talk a lot, so I apologize.
Thanks again.
No, thank you guys, and thank you guys for having me on. I hope to hear from all you fans soon and be back on again talking about CZW and other things.
Bye. So what an incredible interview we just had there with DJ Hyde. That's probably one of my favorite interviews ever. Such cool stories as well that he shared. But as for the next Kayfabe with Keaton, it's actually a double header today at 8. We're promoting the big match: Ricky Henry versus Crusher Crossing for the NWF World Heavyweight Championship in his last match. You definitely want to see this match. You know, this is NIPW Shockwave, one of the biggest shows of the year. Just note here that the venues have changed, and it's now in the Lions Den Pro Wrestling Dojo due to media. And for all your information, you can check out my Facebook group, NIPW Fans Group. But yeah, so make sure to check out this episode where we take a deep dive into Crusher Crossing's career and what he's doing now to get in shape. So this is going to be an absolutely incredible interview today. And we'll be away from Kayfabe for a while because I'll be at Shockwave. Maybe doing some interviews or something at the 11th, doing the media production at NIPW. But 2026 is going to be a big year. Make sure to check out Indie Wrestling Uncut, my new series, and CZW as well. You can they're just Combat Zone Wrestling, as DJ Hyde said, and then you can also check out CZWWrestling.com. So this is going to be an incredible year for Kayfabe with Keaton, and I hope you can join me. So thank you very much for coming on, and thank you very much for watching, everyone. Bye bye.